Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, Dzkan Toys, where I do reviews and share my thoughts on some of my favorite toy releases. Today, we have an update on the channel. Also, we're going to be looking at the Figma Merlin number 479. Today, we'll start our video with something different, which is a channel update. I guess I owe you guys an explanation of what has been happening since I haven't been posting for around almost 2 months now. Usually I will post a video every week at least. But first of all, thank you guys, all of my subscribers who has been staying with me and all of the new ones that have joined recently. I started this channel half a year ago, mainly just to share my hobby of toy photography and figure collecting with all of you guys out there in the community who have similar interests. So what happened was during the end of last year in mid-December, I had a sports injury playing my favorite sport, badminton. I was playing at least 5 times a week, which now that I think about it, it may have been a little bit too much. And one of those days I actually injured my right knee, which the doctor may suggest is a meniscus injury, and it may take around 2 to 3 months to fully heal. At first, when I just had the injury, it was almost impossible for me to kneel down, as every time when I kneel down, I would feel a sharp pain in my knee. And that really put my toy photography and filming to a pause, because often or not, when I do my setups to take toy photography or filming, I have to kneel down to capture certain angles for the film or pictures. Right now, I'm at a point where I can begin to kneel down again and start filming again, so I'm gonna try to gradually start taking pictures and filming again for you guys who are interested in this channel. So yeah, that's my explanation of why I've been absent for a while now. Hopefully I can fully heal soon. Today we'll be looking at the Figma Merlin, and I actually have quite a few figures stocked up that I didn't even open yet since December. I was planning to do a review of all of them, but as you guys know, after my injury, I really couldn't film. So hopefully maybe I can get some of those figure reviews out to share with you guys as well, because I'm also interested in looking at them and taking some pictures of them and posting on my Instagram toy photography page. Shout out to my Instagram, it's dzkan_toys if you guys are interested in toy photography. Anyways, let's get today's video started by getting the Merlin unboxed then. Here we have our Figma Merlin unboxed, and let's take a 360 view of him. In terms of the company, Figma, many of you guys already know, it is by Max Factory and Good Smile Company. Their focus is to have beauty and articulation at the same time. They're around a little bit smaller than your usual 1/12 scale figures. For our character background today, Merlin is a famous character not only in real life in the Arthurian legend as the powerful wizard, but also over here he is the popular character from the Fate franchise, also the Fate video games known as Merlin, of course, caster class, true name Merlin, Magus of Flowers. He is a prophet and advisor who made his entry into the Arthurian legends as the court magus. He would at times guide, at times torment, and at times help King Arthur as a king so that she could overcome many enemies and hardships. By she, I mean the version of Arturia from the Fate series. Still though, he is a wise man, fundamentally inhuman, because he was born of mixed blood from the union of an incubus and human. He's known as the Grand Caster, which is the most powerful of its class. So let's get our Buster memes out here. If you guys understand what I meant by that, it is a reference for all of you guys who played the video game Fate Grand Order. Moving on to the paint job and the aesthetics of the figure. So in terms of aesthetics, Merlin is actually quite stylish over here in his Fate counterpart compared to his real life version. Over here he is quite handsome and he has very stylish robes in terms of clothing. From the top at the shoulders we have very interesting designs of, I would say, feather pads on each shoulder, and they're quite colorful. We have them color separated in pink, purple, and yellow with blue and black as well in the 2 front part. We also have a dark pink ribbon on the center along with light pink design and purple design lines in the middle section of the figure. As we can see, his robe design extend all the way down to each sleeve, and they seem quite long, which is a very interesting design. It has to be one of the few ones that I've seen like this for Figma characters, so very interesting indeed. Moving down, in terms of the aesthetics and paint job, we have very baggy pants, which makes sense for this wizard. They have black as the primary color, but we do have these nice gold paint touches, which is in these lines of designs on the pants. Here's a closer look at all of the colorful shoulder designs. As you guys can see here, I mentioned earlier, it's quite interesting that he has this long robe design for the sleeves as well. It's probably one of the first, as I mentioned, that I have seen on Figmas. Of course, for the lower body, we also have the gold that I forgot to mention, which is on his belt. A ribbon that's done in gold. All the way down to his boots, we have more gold coverings on the top of his shoes as well. Here's the side view of Merlin. There's not much to mention in terms of the side view, but I did notice this interesting design over here, which is his earrings are more apparent when you look from the side. And these are done in the white and pink color as well. They're sort of in a double feather shape. Finally, we have a back view of Figma Merlin. In terms of aesthetics and appearance over here, it looks quite unique. Again, Merlin probably has some of the longest hair ever sculpted on a Figma, as it goes all the way down to almost his shoes. So this is very interesting. I'll have to check out the articulation later for you guys to see how it works. But in terms of the aesthetics and design, I feel like it looks a little bit messy over here, but for the most part, you're not going to be looking at the Merlin figure from the back. It works though, somehow. As you guys can see, the hair at the bottom almost touches the shoes. Overall then, the aesthetics and paint job of the Merlin Figma so far, I would give it an A+, as it's probably some of the better Figma paint jobs and aesthetics done in recent Figmas. Even looking at the paint job closely, I don't really see major paint defects or paint bleeding, so good job to Good Smile Company and Max Factory for that. As always too, for the face of Figma is their strong part. All of the printing of the eyes are done very nicely over here and represents the character very well. Next up, let's move on to the accessories. So first of all, we have Merlin's signature staff, which is over here and here. It comes in two parts, which we can connect together very easily, just like that. And the separation is for easier holding for Merlin, of course, but let's just check out this staff. It's so detailed and it has many colors. Beginning with the top, we have this brown color design. It looks like some sort of a wood piece and is very reminiscent of a lot of staffs held by wizards. Moving along, we have gold, and this gold design over here, as you guys can see, is quite complicated. I'm not really sure how to explain that. Down over here, it attaches through these ribbon-like sculptures, which again is very colorful. We have a purple paint, light blue paint, and also this tan color. Moving down, we have more gold design over here. Gold lines painted, red for this ribbon end part, blue and silver, and the staff itself is a light black to a dark blue, I would say, or a dark gray. Might just be color blind over here. And what's interesting is the staff itself is actually not straight, and this is on purpose. If you guys can see going down like this, it's not straight. It curves and goes back. And I don't believe this is a factory defect, and it's made purposely like this. I guess it's more magical this way. Let's just explain it like that. So overall, I'm very satisfied with how the staff looks, as no matter in terms of aesthetics and paint job, it looks like they did a really good job on it. Now let's just have Merlin hold it and check it out. Here we have Merlin holding his staff. It matches his outfit very well, and it looks like Merlin's beginning to cast his spell to boost your team. So very nice. Upon inspecting the staff, I actually noticed that this part over here that you guys see is actually supposed to be his secondary weapon, which is a dagger. I never knew that Merlin stored his dagger in his staff. I guess I learn something new every day, and I thought I'm a huge Fate fan and I would know this, but I guess Figma taught me that this is actually his dagger, I guess. So if you guys can see, you can pull it out like this. So this is the handle of the dagger. Let's just adjust the camera like this. And moving on to our other accessory, which is the dagger with the blade itself. Very nicely done. If you're not using the dagger, of course, you can plug it back in the staff, just like that, very easily. But I have noticed that this staff is a little bit heavy and the joint for the wrist is a little bit loose, for my figure at least. So you guys might run into some problems in regarding to weight issues of holding the staff, because it's easy for his hand to fall off during posing. That's just something to note about. Furthermore, for the dagger, to make it easier to hold for our Merlin, we can actually separate the bottom part and attach the holding hand. So this way we can make him hold the dagger and plug it back in. Very nice, just like that. Let's get him to hold it. Here's an idea of Merlin using the dagger after pulling it out from the staff. I barely posed him, and I feel like in this pose he already looks sort of dynamic with the sleeves, which I really enjoy. I'm sure you guys can come up with more creative ways to pose him. Here's another angle, looking more closely to Merlin holding his dagger. Moving on to all of the interchangeable hand accessories. So it's quite common with Figma to have a lot of hands. Merlin here is no different. He has a pair of holding hands, so you can hold the staff in either hand or the dagger in either hand. Next up, we have a pair of open palms. So these you can use for many different poses, such as casting spells, as the Grand Caster would. Next up, we have a pair of semi-relaxed open palms. So these, we can get creative with them and do a lot of different poses as well. Just on a side note, from certain angles, the dynamic sleeves looks kind of funny to me, such as this image that we see in front of us right now. Doesn't it look like Merlin is ready to become a helicopter? The last pair of hands, which comes attached to the figure during the opening, which is this pair of closed fists, very standard stuff. Now let's move on to the facial expressions. In terms of the faceplates, the one that we see attached on the figure straight out of the box, of course, is the normal looking face. We have two extra ones. The second option we get is Merlin looking towards the sides. The last faceplate option is a Merlin open mouth expression, which can be used with many dynamic poses. Of course, in terms of the paint of this faceplate, it's done nicely. As we can see, the inside of the mouth is painted. We can even see his teeth done in white. We also have this cool accessory to show you guys, which is these pink cherry blossom like flowers. I assume these are cherry blossoms. I'm actually not sure. We get two of them actually. They're nicely painted with pink and a bit of white shading. And at the back we have these plastic clear rectangular stands which the flower sits on. We also have a small peg hole on the middle of this thing. Upon further inspection, although we do have a peg hole in the middle back here, it doesn't fit any of the stands, so I guess it's not related. But anyways, these sit nicely on the floor just like that. You can place them however you like. Obviously not on this side because you can see the stand, so usually what you would do is just like this besides Merlin, and we can put the other piece, which is over here besides Merlin, and we get this very nice looking scene of these flowers that start to spread around Merlin's feet. And for those of you guys who don't know, in Fate Grand Order, the game, actually when Merlin is standing around, we constantly see these cherry blossom popping out from the bottom of his feet. And this is a signature scene, especially when he uses his ultimate move, which is his Noble Phantasm. Is called Garden of Avalon, which he basically spams in the game. And when he uses this move, you would see the entire field beginning to become full of these cherry blossom flowers, and he would give your team a very nice team-wide buff. So that's where these parts came from. So although we only get 2 of them, I don't assume that they'll give you enough to create an entire flower field. It's still a very nice touch in my personal opinion. And they do look very nice when posed with Merlin, or if you decide to display Merlin with these flowers. Lastly, in terms of accessories, we have our typical Figma stand, which we can easily just connect. It's very standard. But what's interesting about this version of the Figma stand is we have this extra piece over here. As you guys can see, this extra attachment has a metal rod, and this is specifically made for Merlin because at the back, if you want to attach him through the stand, it is actually quite far away as there's a lot of distance over here because of the hair. So I guess they made it easier by having a long metal rod stand attachment, which we can easily plug in like this and connect to our normal Figma stand. This way we can still have Merlin using his Figma stand much more easily, just like that. So very interesting touch. This is the first time I've seen a metal rod stand on a Figma. Other than that, we do have this small peg, which comes with every Figma nowadays. It's an extra wrist peg in case you lose one or break one. And that's about it for all of the accessories. Now let's check out the articulation. So personally, I'm actually very interested as Merlin over here has some of the more interesting designs for a Figma. For the head, we have our usual 360. His bangs over here is soft, so it doesn't hinder the articulation of the head too much. We do have a look forward, upwards, forwards, about that much, so not too much of a motion for that aspect. Moving to the arms, we can go all the way up. So it's very interesting how they designed the shoulder joints. We have a flap of plastic, soft rubber material here, and we have a shoulder pad over here which can move up and down as well. It's actually attached to a small joint at the back which can just unplug like this. So without it, obviously Merlin can move very freely like that, but with it, as we can see on the other side, it does hinder it a bit up to a certain point. It's not that bad, so just to show you guys the differences with and without the shoulder pad. For the elbow, we do have a bend like this. And what's very interesting is we have this extra piece attached to the lower arm. It's actually a sleeve. Normally, just like this, it dangles down, but it does have articulation. Just to show you guys on the back side, you can move it like that towards one side only. You can't turn the other way, and you can get an effect like this, which is very nice as it looks very dynamic. And certain angles, it might look weird, but in terms of other angles, you can make him look very dynamic in terms of the posing, as if he's casting a spell in the wind. So this is a very interesting detail, and I really enjoy it personally. Moving on to the midsection, we do have a wiggle here, a side to side. For the lower waist, there doesn't seem to be any type of articulation as is a sculpted one piece, so no articulation there. As for the legs, we can kick all the way forward, all the way backwards, but we did lose the flap over here in the process. Let's see. So we do have a bend on the knee. Because of the design of the baggy pants, we can't bend it all the way, so the bend is not that good. And for the feet, we have our usual side to side, up and down joint, and the toe pivot. So let's move on to the back. As you guys can see, here's the joint where I lost the flap. So this flap does have minor articulation. You can move it up and down, a little bit side to side to help with the leg movements. And what's really interesting here is the hair. The lower hair is separate from the upper hair. Given that weight issues do exist in real life, this makes sense. They have this extra design that makes you seem like they're connected together, but they're actually not, so it doesn't hinder his upper head articulation. This piece of hair over here is actually one piece, and it doesn't really move. It's just rubber. You can bend it, but the bottom two piece is an extra two piece of hair, which does have articulation, just like this, as you guys can see, up and down, side to side a little bit. That's the max, and they're connected to a Figma joint here as well. And if you guys can see this joint over here, it is the connection to the shoulder pads. So for example, this one over here is connected through this joint. So yeah, in general, that's the articulation of Merlin. It's quite an interesting one, as we have some sort of interesting hair design as well as sleeve design. So very nicely done actually for what it is. He's not a superposable character, but it does the job, I feel like. Now for some size comparisons. Here we have OG Artoria or OG Altria, whatever you want to call it. They look quite good together. Get your Buster memes going. Next up we have a casual Mordred. So Merlin is taller over here as well. For some guy Figma comparisons, we do have our Arthur prototype. So they're around the same height, although Arthur over here seems a bit shorter because he's in this dynamic pose. Of course, we have our Master from FGO. They look around the same height as well. I think Merlin is actually taller because our Master over here is standing on the Figma stand. So Merlin is actually taller compared to a normal Figma. Here we have a Mayfex Deadpool, which is a 1/12 scale. And we have a SH Figuarts Super Vegeta. So I would say Merlin is around Goku height, if not taller, in terms of SH Figuarts. In terms of the negatives, I wouldn't say there's too many, but in terms of articulation, Merlin is considered to be a weaker one for the Figma line, but this makes sense due to his complex design and his clothing being fairly baggy. That's not a really big issue in my personal opinion because Merlin himself being a sorcerer, he doesn't need to be that hyper-articulated as he fights with magic. But I have to point out some parts of the shoulder or the skirt armor may fall off easily when you're posing him, so he does have a potential to be a hand grenade. But if you're careful with it, it's not that big of an issue. So overall, I would still highly recommend this Figma to all of you guys who are fans of the Fate series especially, and also you guys who just want a sorcerer in your Figma collection. Merlin does the job well, and he really looks good. That's the important part. So anyways, there goes the end of today's review. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please support the channel by liking the video and subscribing. I would really appreciate that. Hope to see you guys soon. As always, remember to stay young at heart, and we're out.